Welcome to Ascend Manso Slave River Site. My name is Kofi. Kofi because I'm born on Friday, and Fridays are always the best. And, and I'm going to be a site guy. But most often at times, whenever we start with a tour, we mostly we
It's squirrel.
It's a baby. Okay.
but you
Thank
can
you.
hold it. You can hold it. No, they don't scare it. Okay. So most often at times when we are about starting with a tour, we always pour libation. I hope you know what libation is all. Yes. You always do it wherever you are. You buy yourself a drink and you say to my homie, you pour it on the ground. Yes,
Right.
we Africans are genetically coded. So some certain things appears to us naturally. You cannot just change it. But since that we don't have any gene to say the prayer, then we are going to substitute that with observing a minute of silence for all our brothers and sisters who lost their lives during the trade. After which I would say, may their souls rest in perfect peace. And for those that are still alive, may they find their root. After all, we will say Ashe together. Then I start with the talk. So please, can we observe a minute of silence? And whilst we are observing a minute of silence, if you don't have a scarf on your hair and you have a cap, you drop your cap. Yes. So. May the souls of our ancestors rest in perfect peace, and may all those that are still alive, may they find their roots. Ashe. Okay, so basically not much time, so it's not going to be a lot of spiritual talk, but I'll try my best to tell you certain things that we do when we visit India. Ascend Manso Slave River Site was known in history as one of the important sites during the transatlantic slave trade. It was seen as the biggest slave market during the trade, which has been documented by many historians. We have one in the person of Akosua Adoma Pebi in a book entitled Indigenous Slavery in Ghana from the 16th century to the 19th century. We had our very own professor of history, J.E. Akwanda, also said same in his book entitled The Transatlantic Slave Trade, Landmark, Legacies and Expectation. And also one British historian in the person of W.E. Ward in his book entitled The Short History of Ghana. All these historians made the claim that Ascend Manso indeed was the biggest slave market during the trade. Ascend basically means travelers or people that are just passing through. So according to history, majority of us that formed this community were some of the captives who managed to escape. But because we didn't know how to return to where we were captured, we formed part of this community. So the Manso also means the capital. So because this place became the market, everyone was trooping in here at Ascend. So it had the name, the capital of those people that are just passing through. Two markets played the most significant role. We have the Salaga market at the northern part of Ghana and Ascend Manso, which is closer to the Cape Coast dungeons. So captives that were captured from the upper borders of Ghana, like some parts of Burkina Faso, some parts of Ivory Coast, some parts in the northern part of Ghana, those that were captured were first put into their chains and shackles, and they were made to walk to the Salaga market at the north. It was in the Salaga market that they were given the first opportunity to have something small to eat and something small to drink, because they knew that the journey from Salaga to Ascend Manso is going to be a tough one for our forebearers. So after the food, the journey continues. They were made to walk in chains and shackles from the Ascend Manso, from the Salaga slave market to Ascend Manso slave market here, which was 300 miles by foot. Because they were marching through the forest belt of the country, majority of our brothers and sisters were exposed to many dangers while marching us from the north down to Asen Manso. Some of us were bitten by snakes, others were attacked by wild animals, others suffered punishment and cruelty from the slave raiders. So according to oral history, a lot of our brothers and sisters while marching them from the north down to Asen Manso lost their lives. One of their biggest challenge was crossing the Pra River. When you go into Kumasi from here, you're going to see the river on the way. That Pra River, when I was reading on the trade, when I got to the Pra River, in my thinking, I said, maybe our ancestors are going to get some of the water to drink, so that those of us that feel thirsty, we could drink some for us to quench our thirst. Or also, those of us that are so weak, we could have sprinkled some on our body to regain our energy back. But when I read further, what I was thinking was not what the river was meant for. When they got to the river, that was where the first sorting out took place. Those of our brothers and sisters that were seen not marketable, when they got to that river, they were brought out of their chains and shackles, and they were dumped in that river to die. So every 31st day of July, we always go to that river to observe a vigil and mourn our ancestors. Because the following day, being the 1st of August, the people of Asen Manso and Ghana at large, we celebrate our Emancipation Festival. So when we landed here, this was where our brothers and sisters are sorted out, again, in terms of age and sex. By determining their ages, a device called the speculum oris is put into your mouth, open your mouth, count your teeth, thereby forecasting their ages. Broken bottles was what was used in shaving our brothers and sisters. Leaves from a bamboo tree, which were very itchy, was what was used to bake them. After that, those of them that have gone through all the procedures and are seen stronger, those people were sold out. And after selling you, you were again putting back into your chains and shackles, and you are made to walk to the Cape Coast dungeons, which was 35 miles from here, because that was where the slave ship was being docked. So during that era, wherever you were taken to the dungeons, there's a particular gate with the inscription, the door of no return. With the door of no return is the end of a journey and the beginning of a new experience. But with the door of no return, it wasn't a door to serve our interests as Africans. Because with the door of no return, it is believed that we are never ever going to make it alive to tell the story as it is. That is why they followed us through slave trade, we were there, we survived. Through the plantation, we survived. Through segregation, we are surviving. Through discrimination, we are surviving. And even through racism, we are surviving. They believe that our culture and traditions as Africans would be clean forever. That is why our languages and our names were taken from us. But they couldn't take our spirit in us, because even as they've taken all these things away from us, genetically we are coded, and in diverse ways we still portray our culture. The most important is to eliminate African race from their setting. But today you and I are conscious enough to know where we are coming from. We know our roots and we know our story. So there was a need for us to change that perception on the walls of the dungeons, from the door of no return to the door of return. But the question is, how do we do that? That is why, as you can see in our ancestral graveyard, we have the mortal remains of our two great ancestors. We have first, Madam Crystal, she was from Kingston, Jamaica. And in the middle, we have Samuel Carson from New York, US of A. Madam Crystal was one of our beautiful ladies who was captured, but landed up in Jamaica as a enslaved African. While she was in prison, because she was a mother, she couldn't bear seeing people being maltreated. Children being killed left, right, and center. Women being raped left, right, and center. The pain associated with the trade was so much for this lady to contain. But what can she do? She was in chains and shackles. But she couldn't bear seeing all the pains melted on one another. So she decided to rebel against the act by starving a serf to death. But during that era, whenever you try that, there is a punishment which is meted on you just to serve as a deterrent from your other captives from doing same. They chisel your teeth, they make sure all this is off, put a funnel in there and force you to feed, which is called a force feeding. This and other punishment Madame Crystal had to go through. But because she was looking at the bigger picture, she stood firm, she never took in anything until she lost her life. We have the descendants of Madame Crystal visiting every 27th day of December just to pour libation and say to their ancestor Medasi, which means thank you. In the middle, Samuel Carson, he was the first African American to rise to the highest rank in the US Navy. He died at the age of 35 years, but he wasn't given a befitting burial because he was one of us. So in 1998, the former president of the Republic, the late Flight Lieutenant Joe Rawlins, went to the Caribbean and he observed the celebration of emancipation. Then he said, everything also started in here, so we need to bridge so that we could tell the story better. So when he came back and he formed a committee, and the committee work is to make sure that we celebrate the Emancipation Festival, particularly the people of Assin Manso. So when we had the opportunity to excavate the tomb, the mortal remains of Samuel Carson, there was something strange that we found out. In the military cemetery, if this was supposed to be the military cemetery, Samuel Carson was buried far from the military cemetery. So even right to death, there is still discrimination. So those mortal remains were brought in from Caribbeans, Jamaica, and the United States of America to the Kotika International Airport. When they got to Abanzi in the Cape Coast community, they used the boat, passed through the Atlantic Ocean to the Cape Coast Dungeons, passing through all the channels and coming out of the door of no return and changing to the door of return on the 31st day of July 1998. The following day is the 1st of August, and these two of our greats were buried here. So their burial here informed us to celebrate our Emancipation Festival. The third tomb was brought in here recently by the Prime Minister of Barbados, Her Excellency Mia Amomotli. It was basically a mortal remains that were picked from all slave cemetery that they could find from Barbados. She said it is a responsibility to give them a befitting burial. So all their bones were brought in here just for them to have a peaceful rest. We would have loved to have the mortal remains of all our brothers and sisters in the diaspora being buried here, but the place is too small to accommodate all of us. So this land has been reserved for those of our brothers and sisters who have their bodies cremated, so that they have their ashes sprinkled on this land. So this is not just the mortal remains of this story. We do have hundreds of our brothers and sisters having their ashes sprinkled on this land. The trade itself was abolished in 1807 and it took effect in 1808 for the abolishment of the trade, but not slavery. In Ghana, it is said that slavery was abolished in 1834 by Governor McLean when he blocked all the tunnels in the Cape Coast Dungeons. But for me, I don't believe in those dates, because in the US of A, you have yours to be 1865, in the Caribbean have theirs to be 1834, 1835. I don't buy those dates because I don't believe that slavery has been abolished. I believe that it has rather changed into a new thing that this world is experiencing. So until when you and I are all certain that indeed slavery has been abolished, that is when I can boldly give dates to it. As I said earlier, I'm working with time, so I'll skip a lot of spiritualities. But when we come back, we do have more time. I'll tell you certain things that we do. So I'll be taking you to the river, and before we get to the river, there's one plant called the mimosa plant, and we'll talk about the mimosa plant, and we'll make I really walk to the river and off with her. I want you to get to Kumasi on that. Abo. So please, let's go.